Yay. Nearly there, nearly there. It is live streaming now. Cool. Okay, so thank you all for being with us here today. This is our last meeting for the Waikura Linwood-Central-Heathcote Community Board, not just for this term, but forever, with our wards being popped into other wards. So it's not the end, but it is for this particular grouping. So we welcome everybody that's joining us live this afternoon. It's great to have you with us, and thank you everybody for being with us also. Just a reminder to people that are joining us that we are live streaming and it is recorded. Okay. So we'll start with apologies. I think we have a few for early departure. We've got Jake and Yanni. Cool, thank you. Do I have a mover for those? Sunita and Jackie. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. Do we have any declarations of interest for today's meeting? Cool. Thank you, Tim. All right. Confirmation of previous minutes. Taking it, everybody had the opportunity to go through those. Did I have a mover? Tim and a seconder? Daryl, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. So we have no public forums today, but we do have deputations. So we've got Georgie Lang with us and Charlie Hudson, and they are here to speak with us about the Esplanade access and inclusivity issues. Thank you so much for being with us. Oh, you can come forward as well if you like. The more the merrier. Yeah. Yes, that'd be great. Great. Hi. Cool. So just a reminder that you have 10 minutes and it's being recorded and live streamed and all the fun things. And if you would like questions at the end, then please leave some time.
Thank you, Alexandra.
But fire away.
Okay. Kia ora, firstly, thank you for allowing us to come and present at your last community board meeting. We're very sad that we will be departing, but also we know that we're obviously a lot of us are all moving away together, and I want to thank you for your help over the years. I'm Charlie Hudson. I'm here from the Sumner Community Residents Association as a Sumner Hub coordinator. I have Lisa Sparrow, who's the chair of the Sumner Community Residents Association, Hannah Sander, who is the president of the Christchurch Coastal Pathway, and Georgie Lang, who is the secretary from the Christchurch Coastal Pathway. This conversation came about through sort of one of our regular meetings between the Community Residents Association and the Christchurch Coastal Pathway. With the last link of the Coastal Pathway now underway, we're looking at the final leg, which is Cave Rock to Scarborough Park, and looking at how that fits into the overall project, how suitable it is. And we came up with these issues really around the access, the inclusivity, and the general state of repair of that leg. The Coastal Pathway, we were having a conversation about whether there might be some money left over, and it looking increasingly like there isn't. We've had conversations with residents asking how fit for purpose they see this leg is in its current state. And I know that the benches have been raised already, but having the backs taken away from some of those benches means that some of the older residents find them very difficult to use. We've had some trip hazards, and we also want to thank, actually there's been some repairs done around the clock tower, and thank you so much for that being facilitated and fixed. we've talked to some community groups. So some of the dippers have just raised quite a substantial amount of money to have an all-access beach mat created so that people can get onto the beach. But as these conversations have come about, we've got quite a lot of different groups and agencies who are all really interested in this space. And it's really about us coming together and making sure that we can make this one scope of works. We met with Rachel Mullins, who's the Inclusive Communities Coordinator for Christchurch City Council, and Watine Hema, who's the Community Recreation Advisor. And they've been talking about the appropriate location for the beach mat. But this has raised wider conversations around where it could go, how that links into parking, how that links into actually access onto the esplanade itself. And what we're looking at here is that we're thinking that we really need to join together the threads of this work program. So if we looked at what the access points could look like both onto the esplanade and onto the beach, the surfacing of the esplanade itself, parking issues, how we support disabled car parks or all able parking for where the access points are most suitable, the benches, suitable signage so that it ties into the rest of the coastal pathway. And also maybe there's we were looking at some sort of beach access equipment. North Shore have got an excellent facility at the moment that houses a wheelchair that can be used, and the beach mat, and some other kind of equipment that fits into this idea of getting there, staying there, playing there, which is this sort of inclusive communities mandate. So we're kind of all here today really to ask for your advice and also to answer any questions that you might have. And the big question is whether you think there's value to bring this whole project together under one scope of works and what we can do to help facilitate that. So over to you.
Turn that on. I appreciate you coming and speaking with us today and bringing some of those concerns to us. We really appreciate it. Do I have questions? Daryl?
Yeah, thank you. The points that you raised, I think are ones that have been consistently raised.
Excuse me, Daryl, could you please use your
Oh,
microphone?
sorry.
My
apologies. Yeah, the points that you raise are ones that have been consistently raised before, and I know that I've raised the benches, and Tim has indicated that potentially there may be funding left over from the Coastal Pathway project. Now, did I hear that that wasn't a possibility?
Mm.
We don't know yet. So we're currently building it, but until we're further along, we won't know how much we have to finish it.
Right. So what you've identified are your areas of concerns and your proposals. I'm wondering if the board felt that the right approach was to seek staff advice to come back to us. Would that fulfill the first step in terms of moving forward?
Yes, so it's looking at the moment, some of it's sitting with parks, some of it might be sitting with community fundraising, some of it might be looking at Sport Canterbury. So it's really, is that the pathway we're going down, or are we looking at something that's actually needs a slightly more, could it be something that could be put into an annual plan or long-term plan, really?
But essentially, you having articulated and identified the key parts of the key concerns that you have, if we were able to centralise that and get a staff report that actually identifies how we might answer those questions, whether it's synonymous with council picking it all up or whether it belongs to disparate groups within council, and the funding mechanism is perhaps from here for the seating and from here for another part of it. Is that a way forward that we identify as a first step?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair. My suggestion is, rather than asking for a report, that we ask for, to the new board, new community board, ask for a briefing that community and elected members and staff all attend, so that there's a whole lot of kōrero that could happen with everybody in the room, which wouldn't happen if there was a report that came. So to be able to have that conversation and then a report come from there might be a more expeditious way of making it happen. I will.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, but I think it's essential for this group here, groups here today are able to go away knowing that there is a way forward.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Tim?
Yeah, I'll just note, there has been the Scott Park Working Party, there has been the Lower Heathcote Working Party. So this board has a history of doing these things rather well. And I think that would be potentially a good model.
Thank you. Yanni?
I'm not quite sure. Are we in questions or sort of board discussion or?
We're asking questions, but we're
Oh.
kind of having a discussion at the
Cool,
same time.
okay. I mean, it's kind of made the comment to the reference that you were hoping there might be money left over, but you think all the money's gone. And I was kind of interested to know who gave you that advice. And then a question for our staff, because there has been money left over from the coastal pathway and it's been reallocated to other projects. So how can we ensure that if there is any spare money from the stages of the coastal pathway, that it goes back into kind of the general kind of principle of the coastal pathway rather than into other projects by council? So I don't know who's best to answer that question, but cool.
So Tim prepared the shovel-ready funding to finish the pathway. And with all the things going on in the world, COVID and supply changes, we should have enough to finish the pathway as we have been talking about. And that would include some improvements along what we're talking about, the Esplanade. But until we're further along, we just won't know. So we're not saying that we don't have money. We're not saying that we will have lots of money left over. We don't know. We're at a position right now where we're working on it and we'll know more as time goes on.
Right, but I'm seeing change requests come through from other parts of the coastal pathway that's under budget, taking the money and allocating it to other projects that are not related to the coastal pathway.
I don't think any of us know what
Shouldn't be.
you're talking about.
We did, remember, and this was raised at the time. Why are we not using the money that, but anyway, that's cool. As long as we can just find out. But I totally support the intent of what you're asking for.
But that would potentially be something that could be discussed in a briefing if it is something.
Yeah, I guess the new board will deal with it.
Yeah.
I would, I've made a note of that. That might be some of the information that is prepared and ready for a brief, you know, in that workshop that we'd run
Okay,
with the
thank you.
community staff and new board.
So with the new briefing, what can we bring to the table? I mean, I think that we've highlighted what we've highlighted what we're concerned about, but I think that some of the stuff we didn't want to overload with detail, but we know that another ramp access halfway along would be really good. And it's just really
Yeah.
what level of detail we should bring, really.
Yeah, I think bringing all of your ideas
Yeah.
to the table is a really good discussion piece.
Yeah.
Staff, and also probably sending them through earlier. So if there are questions, staff have the opportunity to answer those questions and give advice at the time rather than it be like coming back and then meeting again. So yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Like I say, it's going to be crucial in the new term to come and introduce yourselves to the new board. And I'd suggest, sending through stuff to Arohanui Grace ahead of time so she can make sure the right staff are there and that we can all, and they'll have had stuff prepared as well and work out how to move forward together, which will be really good. So you can see that, that sort of the potential for access partway. So there's the two ones that have the steps on one side and a bit of a ramp on the other that go across and down onto the bit of the Esplanade there. But it's missing one sort of halfway down.
Yeah.
And people contacted me. I just took photos about 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
for sending through and stuff. So
Nice.
doing that would be really good.
And when would, obviously, I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit ignorant here, but when does the new board start meeting?
Proper meeting, probably November.
November.
November, I'd say. Surely.
Great.
The first meeting's late October, so the first briefings will be mid to late November.
Great.
Yeah, and if you could send all of the information that you've got prepared for this meeting to Liz, that will all get sent through as a package to the new community board advisor in Spraden Cashmere Heathcote.
Excellent.
Thank you. And Daryl?
Thank you. At what point will you know what the financial situation is with respect to potential monies being left over from the coastal pathway construction?
That's a better question to City Council. We've been asking them, and they're also reluctant to give us that timeframe. So we'll certainly know when it's done, but hopefully we'll know before that. But I don't have an answer.
So the construction stuff and some of the funding around the construction is dependent on a range of different things, including penguins. So I just met with staff on site, talking about other access issues across Monks Bay with some residents a couple of days ago. And while some sections will be finished by Christmas, sort of around, hopefully, it's not till later next year that they're expecting to actually finish construction. And so it won't be until the very end that they work out whether there's anything left over. But my expectation would be that things like seating would be actually part of the project whole budget rather than,
Lisa Sparrow, Chair of the Residents Association. We're also very conscious that once the project's completed, the coastal pathway itself, that will have we're expecting a larger influx of visitors to the area, which will impact obviously on all the utilities and parking and so forth there. So it's sort of part of that. We're concerned for that as well.
Yeah. Fabulous. Look, well, thank you so much for meeting with us today, and I wish you all the best with meeting with your new board. But I think it's really good that you've come to us today and we can kind of set the wheels in motion, and you'll have a better idea of what to come to the table with as well. So it'll be a good start. Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your work. Thank you.
I will need a mover and seconder for that.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. So we've popped a resolution up. Do I have a mover for that, Sarah? And a seconder? Daryl? Yanni, yeah.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I think one of the frustrations is that there's 320K.
Can you pull your microphone down? Just so
there was 320K that got taken off the coastal pathway budget and put into the Antigua Street cycleway in the central city. And I just wondered if, we appreciate we're going to get a briefing, but it might be really good if staff could talk to the finance team.
You won't be getting a briefing.
No, but there will be a briefing at some stage. But just in the meantime, maybe someone just needs to talk to the finance team and just say, look, we've actually got other funding requests related to the coastal pathway. Are you able to tag that budget or identify which budgets are being used? Because I just think if we'd known that there was this need, it would have been good to have known that before the change was agreed. So the money could have went back to the coastal pathway rather than other projects.
Yeah, I've written it down.
Cool, thank you. All right,
Sorry.
so we had a mover, Sarah, seconded Daryl, all in favour. Thank you, carried. Okay, moving on to our second. Oh, John. So I've just got a John online. Where's he gone? John, are you there? Hi, John. I just wanted to say, so you're here to talk about Aberdeen Street. So Liz emailed you earlier this afternoon just to say that that report has been taken off the agenda. She didn't have your phone number, so she couldn't call you. So I first want to say you're just on mute, but I just want to say thank you for your patience in listening to the last deputation. I hope you found it very interesting. But we won't be discussing that today. So apologies that we haven't been able to get through to you. But
that's okay. Sorry, I've been at meetings all afternoon, so I missed it. Never mind, my fault.
no worries at all. Well, thank you so much for joining us anyway.
Thanks very much.
And we'll be in touch once that's all ready to go.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, so we are moving on to our next deputation, and we have Viviana with us, and we are discussing from the Lancaster Park consultation. Viviana would like to have a chat to us about that. Fire away.
Thank
You know you've got 10 minutes and
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So Lancaster Park open to the public is just fantastic. It is indeed a beautiful park in a part of the city that desperately needed a green space, a decent green space actually. I'm glad to hear that sports clubs are really enjoying the fields. My colleague's husband played one of his soccer games some weeks ago in Lancaster Park and the feedback was just enthusiastic. It's undoubtful that Lancaster Park is an incredible asset for sports clubs and sport people in Ōtautahi, so well done. But will it be also a great asset for the local communities? I think that it's not a secret that I'm not really impressed with the engagement and the process about the redevelopment of Lancaster Park since April 2019. And especially with the so-called engagement run at the beginning of the year after the trust asked for it into 2020, in August 2020. This wasn't the meaningful engagement process that we asked for. And in my opinion, the process failed to give a voice to the local communities. But today, I'm not here to talk about the engagement or what I think a meaningful engagement should look like, especially for high disengaged communities. I'm here today to talk about the proposal for a community facility to be built on Lancaster Park by 2024 and the concerns from the trust about this community facility on our aspirations for a permanent community center, community hub in Phillipstown. I'm not really referring to the changing rooms with toilets that are ancillary to the sports clubs. I'm talking about a community facility with 3 spaces, a kitchen, and possibly a couple of offices that have been under discussion since the 3rd of June 2022 with council staff. I've become familiar with the Community Facilities Network Plan adopted by Council in 2019, and the plan lists some boxes to be ticked in order to realize an opportunity that means to build a new community facility. A well-defined and demonstrated need must exist. Feasibility study must translate the community needs into a sustainable concept design, and a subsequent business plan should detail the financial and human resources needed to develop, own, and operate a facility. I'm aware of those criteria, and more are also included, because we had to follow that process to start a conversation with council about a permanent hub for Phillipstown. And our feasibility study proved that there is a need for a community space in Phillipstown, that currently the Phillipstown Community Hub is fulfilling that need, and that we are best placed to fulfill that need in the future. A community hub run by the trust is feasible, and if, as stated in the community facility network plan, there are no geographical gaps in terms of community facilities in Ōtautahi, this is because the Phillipstown Community Hub is running from the former Phillipstown Primary School site. Without us being there, there would be a physical gap. At that time, I understood that the existence of possible geographical gaps or overlaps was a very important topic for council to decide whether a new facility needs to be built or not. And our concerns. I would like to express the trust concerns about the possible impact and implication for Phillipstown and this aspiration for a community facility in the neighborhood in case a new city council owned facility is built on Lancaster Park. Lancaster Park is not Phillipstown, but it's really close. Could that jeopardize our aspiration for a permanent community center or community hub there? In a meeting on the 28th of June 2022, attended also by the community advisor competent for Phillipstown, Paul McCaffrey, community facility specialist for council, confirmed that there will be an impact if a new community facility is built close to the area. He doesn't know the extent of that impact, and he suggested to have an investigation about that. My request today to the community board is that before committing and approving a community facility on Lancaster Park, the board requests and obtains a genuine assessment about any possible implication and impact of a new community facility in Lancaster Park on our aspiration for a permanent community hub or community center in Phillipstown, for which council has already allocated almost $4 million in the long-term plan towards 2030. To clarify, we are not against any kind of changing rooms or at all for that, of course, ancillary for sports clubs or any community facility on Lancaster Park, as long as that will not deprive our communities for a long promised, much awaited, much delayed permanent space for Phillipstown. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Viviana. And I know this has been a bit of a worry, and from our thinking, it shouldn't be an issue, but I think it's really good that you've come to us and we've got it recorded, you actually being here and speaking with us. And that's something we do have some wording for that we will seek assurance, but I'll read that out soon. I've just got Jake with his hand up.
Oh, I think you've actually preempted what I was going to say. I just had a question for Viviana in terms of, are you saying that your preference would be that we didn't approve this today? But I think with the wording that that's being worked on, that probably gives you that comfort, does it, Viviana? If we can get that assurance today, and we can do both.
I'm not sure about the wording. Sorry.
We're just about to put it up, I think. I can read it out anyway. I'll read it out now. So we will share it as well, so it can be read. So resolution that the Waikura Linwood-Central-Heathcote Board notes the concerns of the Phillipstown Hub regarding the proposed community facility on Lancaster Park and requests assurance that the purpose for the proposed community building on Lancaster Park will not impact on the aspirations and request for a permanent community hub in Phillipstown, for which council has already allocated almost $4 million in the council's annual plan.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. And thank you, people that sent through wording for that, and staff for working on it this afternoon. I think it's a good outcome there. And as long as you're happy with it, Viviana, then Yanni.
In our report, we're not being asked to agree to anything. We're only receiving the information.
Okay.
I'm just mindful of the comment that you made at the start, that you don't feel that this has been a good process around community involvement. And I know that we had a resolution to co-design, I think was the language we used. So would you like us to put a second resolution that ensures that the Phillipstown Hub are involved in the co-design of the plan before it's released?
In the co-design of the special plan?
Yeah, of the plan that's going to go out for consultation.
Oh, we are involved in that. What I was hoping in the past was that the community was more involved.
Right.
We were hoping that the process could have been able to really engage with all the local. We are not representing. We are a community development organization. We are not representing. We want the community to come along and be part of the design of the future redevelopment. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the process didn't allow that to happen, especially because my community is really disengaged. There is the need of building trust before asking feedback, and that was quite a short period of time. So I was hoping something different, but we, as the trust and we are already involved in the design of the layout of the park and the building. We are constantly invited. I think that is absolutely without doubt.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right, so before it gets, so it's going out it's coming back to the community board by late November 2022. So as long as I think it's important that there is a way to check in with the community before it comes back to the community board.
Yeah, I think, well, we can make that note, but Viviana, you're very, sorry, my brain just totally died. You're like all over being in touch with the community board as well. So it might be good for you. You obviously know to come to us, but it would be, yeah, you're right, the new community board. So I think what we were saying to the other group before, if you can come and give an update to the board at the very beginning of the term as well, then that would be really useful going forward. And then if there are any issues through that consultation process moving forward, then we can pick those up. Well, the new board
That's a
can
good
pick
idea.
those up.
So maybe we want to ask for a briefing to the new community because it'll align nicely with the timing of the plan going out for consultation and being approved by the new board. Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look at that when we're speaking with staff. Yeah, I've got Michelle with her hand up as well.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you, Viviana, for coming and reminding us about the importance of the Phillipstown hub and also just the possible implications. One thing I did want to ask you about, just in terms of the community consultation that did happen, there were quite a few meetings somewhere at the public, the hub, maybe I think was it early in the year or late last year with Rory. How did you feel about that? Because I'm just wanting to learn a bit more about the community consultation and how it could have been improved. How did you feel about it, the more recent community consultation that happened?
When we asked council, what was that, this Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee for an engagement to be co-designed with us, I was imagining something different. I was imagining a co-design of an engagement. I was imagining quite a bit of time dedicated to build awareness about what happened and also trust, and also the inclusion of innovative and creative ways of seeking ideas and opinions from our residents. The consultation, actually, yeah, it wasn't an engagement in my opinion. It was a consultation. It was brief. It was a really short period of time. It wasn't co-designed with the community organizations. Council staff came to the meetings and briefed I hope it's the right word, the audience, inviting to submit online. My community do not submit online. It's really difficult for them. And it wasn't clearly any creative way. And I felt that we lost really an opportunity to use different means to create a journey and also a sense of ownership for the park. And yeah, I really think that it was more, it's a system that is designed for communities not like Phillipstown.
Right. So Viviana, just a wee follow up, because you are obviously very well versed in this. Are you aware of any co-design type processes that have been conducted by council or perhaps locally in Christchurch that have worked better, just so that I can sort of learn a bit more about what I should be advocating for in the future?
No, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sorry. I don't. Maybe there are some, but I don't. I'm not aware of that. Yeah. And I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm saying that I'm ignorant.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah. All good. Hey, and thank you for the work you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Well, thank you so much, Viviana. Really appreciate your time as usual. And we will move that. Do I have a mover? Sunita and Yanni, all in favour? Thank you, carried. Cool, thank you so much. We are going to bring item 13 forward, so we can discuss it. So Viviana can be here while we discuss it. So do we have, who do we have for this one? I've just got Richard Gibbs and Tessa.
Kia ora.
Come forward. Thank you for being with us this evening. So just a reminder, obviously we're live streaming and recording and YouTubing and everything. Thank you so much. And thank you for the report. We appreciate the work that's gone into it. Over to you.
Thank you for inviting us. Tessa is on the line, I believe.
Yep.
Richard, sorry, can you just turn on your microphone?
Oh, yes. The little person.
That one.
Yeah.
Got it.
Turn.
Green light comes on. And thank you, Viviana, for your talk just now as well. I do engage with Viviana quite a bit, so I'm obviously aware of the way things are moving as well. So what we want to just, between myself and Tessa, what we want to present today is just really an information report on the outcome of the recent community engagement that was held earlier in the year and the various reports that have been produced as a result of that. And then also we'll just talk about the next steps and how we're using that information really to progress the design of the park and the timescales that will follow that. So Tess, I don't know if you want to start, please, just with the summary of the engagement that you were involved with.
Absolutely. Now forgive me, I'm at home, so I'm just on one screen, so I'll be looking at a document while I'm talking to you. But first I will address the issue in the room, and I do wish I was in the room so that I could turn around and look at Viviana when I say this. I'm really sad to hear that she feels let down by the process and that her community was let down by the process. I can't talk too much to what happened in terms of code designing. So the community recreation advisor, Rory, was obviously with the team at that time. And Viviana, hopefully you can recall that he sat down and had those discussions about the questions that we were going to ask, for example, and then I picked up the mantle and ran the consultation. And you're correct, it was a consultation process. The collaborative side of things probably needed a lot more time to have particularly your Phillipstown residents involved in the process, but time was not something that we had a huge amount of. Now that's not an excuse, but it is the reason. So I can't talk too much about how leading up to the consultation itself more could have been done or why more wasn't done. But certainly, Viviana, I will pick up the phone after this, and at some point over the next week, I'd really like to have a conversation with you about how we move forward. Similarly, I'm not involved in those key stakeholder meetings that you're attending with Richard, so perhaps it's for the three of us to sit down and talk. Anyway, I hope you don't mind me touching on that prior to me going over these results, because I think that's quite important. So the analysis of the feedback, so we ran consultation back, it started in January of this year, so reasonably long time ago now. We did get good response. 151 people did provide feedback, but touching on Viviana's point there, we only had 14 from Phillipstown, 48 who lived in the Waltham Charleston area, and 89 who live elsewhere in Christchurch, and that's probably representative of the number of sports groups who are interested in the future use of the park. However, most people said that they would visit the park for informal recreation, and especially local people. So they would be using it in that capacity. One of the key questions that we asked was around the location of any building that we might have in the park. And we did receive quite clear feedback that they favoured the northern end rather than the southern boundary. And this was due to the southern boundary having issues with water, lack of access, parking and safety. People viewed the northern end as being more accessible. However, there was concerns in either of those corners about either blocking the entry to the park visually and proximity to a nearby sports bar, and then also the industrial area maybe being a little bit quieter and not as friendly for that heightened activity. That said, the issues that people saw in terms of deciding where we located the building, it was really around that easy access, that people can rock straight up to the building entry, proximity to parking, whilst we're not proposing parking on the park itself, people still wanted to have that good access, and that they don't want the building to block the view into the park. They love that lovely open aspect that has been created in that area. Now that the massive stadium's gone, they don't want to see that spoiled by another building. And then the later questions in the consultation were really around what would you like to see within the park itself, and they can really be categorized into 4 different groups. So the first one being landscape features. No surprise, people would like to see lots and lots of trees, and more specifically, they're quite keen on seeing some native trees in the area. They're envisaging winding paths, nature trails and nature play. So using the natural environment to create nice spaces for families and young people. And then some people are also interested in gardens or orchards, so more practical horticultural features. And then we have leisure features. The top thing people wanted to do there for leisure was barbecue and picnic. So really it's about extending their home environment into the park and sharing kai. People also would like to see art installations of all sorts of descriptions and just generally spaces to hang out, as well as the history of the park being displayed throughout the features of the park. And then if we go into recreation, kids play features quite high. So there was a real family focus on a lot of this feedback, and also those who perhaps are going to the park for sports are thinking about the younger siblings who might be coming along with them. Gym equipment for those who want to work out as they travel around the park. Basketball is always popular wherever we ask questions around parks. People are always keen to see basketball, either full court or half courts, as well as some bike features and potentially some water play for those hotter days. And then finally, more practically looking at the facilities that people really wanted in the park: shade and shelter, seating, toilets, which are probably a given, and water fountains, as well as good lighting. So there were some thoughts around security and safety and how people will feel being in the park, particularly at night time. So in addition to running the consultation, of which we had 3 drop-in sessions that people could come along, one, like Viviana mentioned, was at the Phillipstown Hub, and it was, people could come and talk about what they wanted, but at that one in particular, we did do a presentation first and then had the discussion. We also held a youth audit, so a group of young people from the local area came. They had a very brief presentation from staff about the park, and then they went and walked around, and which we weren't actually part of as staff, but they shared their thoughts and feelings about what they would like to see there. And then in addition to that, there was also a Richard, you can help me here, a disability audit as well. Was that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So overall, good and thorough consultation, and those were the results.
Thanks, Tessa. So really what's happened since the conclusion of the engagement that Tessa talked about was that we've been working on putting a lot of the submissions into practice on a revised development plan for the site. What we are trying to do is to bring forward really the whole development of the park by a couple of years, if we can, the LTP has funding up until FY 2026. What we are going to try and do is actually at least get the building side of it well entrenched and even completed by the end of FY 2024. And the reason for doing that is because the building its footprint and its location will actually determine the rest of the design of the facilities around the park. Not so much the landscaping, but certainly the playground and the connection to the playground on that northeastern side. So that's why we're progressing quite quickly with the building development. We had a meeting with all the key stakeholders last week, really just to give them a bit of an update in the same way that we're doing here. And from that, we have put out a brief for the building, which is based on a lot of the submissions that were made. We've given that to 3 architects, and we've engaged with 2 architectural companies who are then going to meet in workshops with the key stakeholders to produce a concept design for the changing facilities and community facilities at the park that we can then present. It'll be to the new board, obviously, in November. We'd really like to get that out of the way and with some good progress certainly by Christmas, so that we can then start on developing or finalising the development plan for the whole site. So all the 4 key elements that Tessa mentioned, the buildings, the play and recreation facilities, the landscape development plan, and then also the multimedia program, which perhaps is just worth commenting on. Linda Burns, who's our visitor experience team leader, is working on gathering all historical information about the sporting history and weaving that in with the cultural intent for the whole site that was produced by Matapopuri last year. And also weaving that in with the completion of the memorial gates, which have taken a little bit longer, not surprisingly perhaps, because they're a very old building. But if you've been past the site recently, you'll have seen that the memorial gates are now shrouded, so that at least the restoration work can continue on them in a weatherproof sense. And we're looking at getting those finally opened actually for Anzac Day next year. That's the intent anyway. I think all the nasty things that are associated with old buildings have finally been discovered on that building. The sort of concrete cancer and the other structural issues that come about. The connection between the memorial gates and the sports fields and the playing fields is another piece of work that also we were working on getting completed, and that's the retaining wall and the paved area, memorial area between the gates and the park. So that in a nutshell is where we're at. As I say, we're trying to bring the whole program forward quite a bit. I'm working on some temporary facilities, a toilet unit on the northwestern side of the park, so that we can take away the portaloos that are currently in place there, and also a storage shed for the sporting codes that they can start using probably from next winter. So the park's been used, as I say, since it opened in June. I thought it came through the winter remarkably well, surprisingly well actually, considering it's actually a very basic construction. And Cricket will look forward to starting there in a month or so. So happy to answer any questions.
Cool, thank you so much for that. And thank you, Tessa, as well, for giving us an update on everything that's going on. It's very exciting that we do actually have some progress now. Yeah, it's very cool. I have a question from Michelle.
Thank you. And thank you very much for coming and talking to us about this. And I'm more information seeking just in terms of the disability audit that was done. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, just find the report. So I met with the Disabled Persons Assembly who came into the office. We were joined by their regional or their local advisor, Ingrid Robertson, and their regional advisor who dialed in on Zoom. They made, the organisation made quite a detailed submission about the key points that they'd like to see to provide, obviously, full access to anyone with any disability in the park. There were, I think, nine recommendations that were made. So these have been circulated to the landscape architect who's working on the site, and also to Linda Burns, who's working on the visitor experience, to make sure that we encompass their recommendations. And as part of the brief for the changing rooms and the toilets and the community facilities that was sent out to the architects, we've also included their recommendations, that they take those into account. I think that there was probably a sort of assumption that we might not sort of be aware of the various recommendations that are made. And so we've been given some quite good guidance in terms of various documents to follow for the design of the park. So it's a very interesting meeting. I mean, a lot of what we already are designing and have designed really takes into account their recommendations, but it was good to go through them point by point.
So just to follow up, is that was that just something that you thought would be a good idea to do, or is that something that being a council facility that you have to do?
It's more of the latter.
Yeah,
that would be my view. There are certain standards that the council has to adopt in this type of work, for sure.
Right. Yep. And so you're saying that the recommendations that were made will be incorporated?
For sure. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you. Good work.
A lot of them already are, actually. But, yeah.
Well, often what's good for people with disabilities is good for people with not disabilities.
Sure, yes. I mean, a good example perhaps is some of the visitor experience that's being developed, you know, obviously sight, smell, touch, all those key senses will be accommodated in the design of the visitor experience, whether it's you know, a sound post that plays an audio or virtual reality or whatever it might be. Those things are all being taken into account.
So one final question on this disability side. So you said that you used the Disabled Persons Assembly to do the audit. Is there like a sort of system of standards and whatnot that they measure against, or how does that work?
Well, what they've referenced is is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So it's an international standard, if you like, and then there is also the New Zealand Disability Strategy. So you know, there are published documents that really govern the way the type of design should work.
And I need to learn more about them.
Well, as I am, yeah.
Cheers.
Tim, thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, I noticed in recommendation 5 from them, there is consideration should be given to providing quiet rooms for people to go to, which are helpful for neurodiverse, i.e. autistic people or anyone else who needs quiet space. I haven't sort of seen that thing commonly before, but I know of the need for it.
Yeah.
Can you comment a bit more about how that's involved your thinking?
What we've put out to the architects is that for the community facilities, whilst we have a large room that can be used for functions which can seat I think 100 people or 150 if they're standing, we've also tasked them with being able to divide that area into smaller rooms which are soundproof. I mean, the architects have all our reports that have been produced, so that's basically how we will try and accommodate that aspect. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Well, if there are no more questions for staff at this stage, I will call for a new, yes?
He did the extent of it. Would you have any idea?
The impact of what?
Of building a community facility at Lancaster Park on Phillips?
Well, I mean, I guess my personal view is that I can't see us having the budget to build something that would impact or would be of sufficient size to accommodate the needs of the Phillipstown Community Hub at all. I mean, we're really talking about a community room that will be in part used by the sports clubs for quite a lot of the time, particularly in summer with cricket and in weekends, and then during the week, things like toy libraries or sort of drop-in type centres, that type of activity. But I mean, I guess the range of activities that the building could be used for are not yet clearly articulated, but it certainly wouldn't be on the scale that the community, that the Phillipstown Community Hub would be expecting.
Yeah.
So I have been in touch with Paul McCaffrey, who produced the facility network plan. He's aware of the resolution that was just made earlier, and I mean, I'll keep him posted on that.
That's right. And just to have, like we have requested for, we have changed the resolution as well, but to have a bit more of an information which gives community an assurance.
Yes.
That's what they're asking for.
Sure,
Has
yeah.
been confirmed.
Yes.
So that
Well,
would be helpful.
I can try and be the middleman for that.
Yes, good.
I'm aware of it now, and obviously, then I'll keep in
No.
contact with the people who
Cool.
make those
Appreciate
decisions.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like at home because now it's a part B and we don't really get to do it now. And I'm wondering whether while there's a part A, part B, how do we frame something that will have an actual impact on?
Do you mean that it won't go to council?
Well, it's a part B rather than a part A.
That
so the
could-
question is what then happens to it?
That will become an action
Yeah.
into the action report and allocated to the relevant staff member, who then, because you're seeking assurance, which means the board needs a written something back.
Yeah.
Is that also something that whoever is the chair of the appropriate board can actually go to council and mention as well? So it's part of the, so it'll be part of the area report anyway, and then they can speak to it.
Yeah.
Like my point is that how, moving forward, because we are not going to be there, how would we make sure that it won't be interpreted otherwise?
It's essential.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's central
Mm.
awareness.
Yeah. So it just needs to be carried forward.
Yeah.
And make sure as elected
Yeah.
members as
Yeah.
well that we
Yeah.
are
Supporting it,
onto that when
yeah.
comes
Yeah.
mentioned.
There is an action that has to be. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It has to be answered
Yes.
And it
by,
won't
to the
disappear.
next board.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why we wrote it that way. So
Yeah,
we would-
yeah.
Follow through.
you've got
Yeah.
time for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool. No, we're good.
So, yeah, 'cause we've only received
Yeah.
the other stuff.
Okay, so sorry, did I have a mover? Sunita, Jackie?
Yeah.
All in favour for receiving the information? Aye, thank you so much. Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Tessa.
Cheers.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving on now, and thank you, Viviana, for your time.
May I just say, thank you for everything. We did see this commission. It was great to work with you. All the best to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Viviana.
Yeah.
We'll see you around. Take care. Okay, we are moving on now to item 6, the presentation of petitions, and there were none. Item 7 is our correspondence. Did you want to discuss that, Liz, at all? No.
We made an action from the deputation.
Do we have a mover for that?
Happy to move.
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks, Sarah. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Moving on now to Colombo Street. That's item 8, page 37 on your agenda. Do we have Luke?
Yes, hello. Hello.
Hello.
Everyone share, please, Jane.
Hi, Luke.
Hi,
Are you able to turn your camera on or?
I can. There we go. Hopefully it's working now.
Thank you. How are you going?
Good. I apologize for joining from home. I have a very sick family at the moment, so logistics today have been very difficult.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you for joining us. So we've all had the opportunity to read the report, but was there anything that you wanted to add to it that you thought was important just to outline for us?
No, I think the memo provided sums everything up in terms
Yeah.
of the response. So
Yeah. Perfect. Do we have any questions for Luke at all? Pretty straightforward. Cool. I've got Sunita as a mover, seconder. Tim. All in favour? Fabulous. Thank you, Luke.
thank you.
Appreciate your time. You can go back to your family. Okay, we don't have item 9. But we do have item 10, and this is page 47 with Sarah. Hi, how are you? Come forward. We have some questions already for you, Sarah, but yeah, you can kick off though.
Yeah, thank you for having me here today. I've also got John Daw with me, who's the Principal Advisor of Public Transport Infrastructure. So I'm here to talk about the report for public transport infrastructure improvements along Route 28.
Excuse me, Sarah, we've got Jess too.
Yes, we do. Hi, Jess. Hi. Sorry.
Hi, Jess.
I've got Jess Stevens. She's the planner at ECAN and can answer any operational questions that you may have about the new bus route.
Are you able to pop your camera on, Jess?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'm Kiara.
And is
Yes.
Sam online for this as well?
Yes.
Hi, Sam. Ooh. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Yes. So we've also got Sam Sharlin here, which was the engagement advisor.
Thank you.
For this project. So this report proposes upgrades to 33 bus stops along Route 28. And the key thing to highlight here is that Route 28 will become the new port-to-port route and connect Littleton to the airport. It will also experience an increase in frequency and will become one of the core routes. So we used to have bus stops every half hour and now we'll have them every 15 minutes. So pretty much doubling the buses that are running through. So these changes were recently approved by Environment Canterbury. So the proposed upgrades in bus stops will make the buses more operationally efficient, more accessible, and ultimately will make public transport a more attractive option. So we went out and consulted on these bus stops and we received general support for the proposals. So I'll now go through each section that we're proposing, and I'll just start with the gondola. So this bus stop is on Christchurch Attractions land. So I haven't included any resolution for the installation of a shelter. We also went out and consulted on long-term bike storage at the gondola. And this received great support through our bicycle user groups. We're still consulting internally, and we'll reach out to those bicycle user groups as well through that design to make sure that we're going to implement the right sort of lockers at the right locations with the right way to operate them. So the second section is Bridle Path Road, and there are 5 bus stops proposed to be line marked to council standards along Bridle Path Road. We're also proposing improved pedestrian crossing facilities and a connected footpath near the bus stops at the intersection of Port Hills Road and Bridle Path Road. We received no objections for these proposals. We received one comment that we shouldn't remove the shelter on Bridle Path Road near Port Hills Road. And so we're going to be leaving that there until we've got the money available to renew and update that shelter. Yes, yes, I think that would be, that would be good. Yeah, we can do that.
I've got one. First, congratulations on looking at the locker storage kind of stuff. You get lots of comments about that.
Can you turn your microphone?
Sorry, thanks so much for the bike storage stuff. It's been wanted for a long time. Given that we can't bike through the tunnel regularly enough. So I've had a comment from some people who live in the Maltworks Villas, which is sort of over 55s, they're mostly over 70, lifestyle village on Port Hills Road there. And I sent in some CSRs only a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And look at that, they're hard standing. Well, I'm sure you planned that anyway. But the one thing they were saying is because they often catch the bus through to Littleton because it's the closest supermarket and all of those kind of things to them. So having the hard standing there will be great. But they're also older and they're quite keen for seats. And the bus stops heading into town all tend to have seats, but the ones heading to Littleton don't. And I'm just wondering if it's possible in that one and another one further down it's that stop and the one on Port Hills Road near Martindale's that they're both that they're requesting seats on.
Yes, so I did see that ticket come through. And so we're looking at installing a seat on Martindale's Road, just outside property 6.
Yep.
And another seat just outside property 94 Port Hills Road.
So 94 is it the one close to Martindale's?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. And but not at this one with the hard standing at the top of the park there on Bridle Path.
On Bridle Path.
That one we're just looking at with the new hard standing on the next to Birdsea Reserve.
Bus stop 42406.
That's it.
Great. Yeah. So what I'll do is I will look at installing those new seats. I'll send out a letter to the affected properties adjacent to those seats.
It's a council reserve.
Yes, that one is, yes, but the other one.
Just do we need a resolution to do that?
No, we don't.
You can just put a seat in. Cool. Can we note that though in the generally high trust. Yep, 42406. 42406. Yeah. That's the one that's not already noted, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really happy with those.
Great. All right, I'll move on to Martindale's Road. So we're proposing that we're going to line mark 4 bus stops to council standards along Martindale's Road.
Sorry. The other Bridle Path one next to Marsden Street.
Yeah, I can.
Which is great. I'm just saying it's just a question. It's got the existing bus stop 42447 to remain as is, reassessed following construction of the adjacent property. Do we know the time frame for that? Because that bus stop's really horrible. It's really overgrown. I keep going out and pruning the trees myself.
Oh, yes. So that's the one I don't have a resolution for. Yes. So my plan is to go out with the construction crew and reconstruct that footpath because it's quite there's quite an embankment and there's a few trees, so I might need to get, an arborist. And once I'm confident of where that footpath can go, then I'll take another resolution to line mark it.
It would be good to get it extended just to where the actual new private lane is.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's that gap, and like I say, I know, it just happens to be the one I hop off. every day,
Yes.
and I hop off into the dirt every time because there's no hard standing there.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll fix up the footpath.
Yeah.
And then I'll take a resolution to the new board.
Okay.
To complete that line marking.
Cool. Thank you. Sorry, this is
no, that's
all my,
great.
Yeah, my patch.
So Martindale's Road, the only thing to note is that I'm proposing to move bus stop 42021 closer to Trussacks Road, and I've just done that to minimise the parking loss. I've received no objections for any of the line marking proposed along this section. Does anyone have any questions? Good. So Port Hills Road, I'm proposing to line mark 8 bus stops. I am also proposing 1 pedestrian refuge as there are no crossing facilities close to bus stop 42084 and 42148. And I'm also proposing a shelter at 42148. Both the shelter and the pedestrian crossing has received support, and I didn't get any objections pertaining to any other bus stops along Port Hills Road. Are there any questions? Yeah, sorry. So it is. Yes. At which bus stop? Oh, yes. Yeah, so we'll be looking at that during the detailed design. So the next section is State Highway 76. So we had early engagement with Waikura for these bus stops, and we worked with them with the design of them. We're proposing to line mark 11 bus stops to council standards. You'll notice in the resolutions that we're just making recommendations for Waikura to approve those line marking changes.
Say how good it is that those line making changes where the slip lane is through into Chapman's Road outside the French bakery there. Because
yes,
they were with when the MPG went in, all those line markings got changed, and the cycle lane markings got taken away. So it's good to see those back in as a recommendation, hopefully, as part of that, because that's definitely new lines that you've drawn on the map.
Yes, and a pedestrian refuge at that location as well.
Which would be good. There's also a request, so residents of Avoca Valley who are trying to get to Heathcote, it's not quite bus stops. There's just further along from there, about there, is where the path comes off, the path alongside Port Hills Road, and then it goes into Council Reserve, and that's the off the road safe sort of cycling track for kids and those kind of things.
Okay.
But it doesn't have a refuge in between those two, but there's a path on either side of the road there.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if you could put a request through to Waikura just to look at putting a pedestrian refuge in.
All right. Yes,
Yeah.
I can pass that on to them.
We've got 2 bits of path that kids biking to Heathcote School. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the one connection that they're after. I'm trying to plug it for surf funding, but not much luck.
What's the critical mass point for the installation of a bus shelter?
So at the moment, we're using 20 bus passengers per day hopping on the bus to warrant a shelter. Through this consultation, we did receive a number of requests to install a shelter, and we are advocating to increase our budgets and lower that threshold so that we can meet that demand. John, do you have any?
Yeah, so that what Sarah's talking about, 20 people per bus stop is based on an available budget. So, we're looking at extending the criteria, which essentially allows for a lot more shelters and upgrades across the network, which is subject to funding. So we're pushing quite hard for that, and we've got good support from business case work that's been done to date that supports that level of investment.
So we received no objections for the proposed line markings along the state highway. And the last, if there's any more questions, if there's no more questions, I'll just carry on to the last little bus stop. So that's on Garlands Road, and we had one bus stop proposed to be line marked to council standards. We did receive an objection for this bus stop, and that was because it's currently used as a timing point. And so a timing point is when a bus arrives early at a bus stop and it waits there until it's back on time and then leaves again. It was found that Garlands Road was a little bit too narrow to accommodate a stopped bus there. So I've spoken to Environment Canterbury, and they have agreed to shift that timing point to a bus stop on the state highway that doesn't block any traffic there. So that sort of concludes the summary of the findings. And if you've got any other questions.
No, that's great. And yeah, thank you for taking into consideration all of the extra bits and pieces that people have asked for. That's really cool. Okay, so that being said, you can step back from the table if you like. Do we have a mover? Sarah, seconder, Tim, all in favour? Thank you, carried. Fabulous, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. We are moving on to item 11, which is page 67 of your board agenda, and we've got Felix with us. Welcome forward. And we are looking at the Canterbury Softball Association upgrade in Cuthbert's Green.
Hi.
Hi.
You're familiar with this proposal, I understand, because
Mhm.
you've approved the finance. So this is just the formal process of giving landlord approval. The board has the delegation, so would you like me to go into the
No, just if there's anything extra that you think that we need to know or anything important, but we will read the report. So
it's an upgrade of the facility, which is perhaps long overdue. They've got finance.
Yep.
It's, we asked the questions about the climate environmental impact, you see.
yeah, yeah,
It was quite interesting, you know. So,
that's really good.
it was all quite a good sort of response.
Yeah.
And they were looking forward to the new facility.
Awesome. Did we have any questions for Felix at all? Not one. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for waiting this amount of time, Felix.
No, I was interested to hear what was being discussed. It was
Good, good. Well, look, if we've got no questions for Felix, I will put the motion. Do I have a mover? Tim and Sunita, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thank you so much, Felix. Thank you for your work on this. And, oh, yes, you do. Well, it would be exciting for them to get that underway. So moving on to item 12, and this is the Sumner Lifeboat Institution, transfer of buildings and granting of ground lease. Cool. And no questions for Felix around this at all? Nothing you wanted to add, Felix?
Not really. I mean,
Cool.
it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It'll be good to tidy it up. Really,
Yeah.
I think, you know.
Yep. Awesome. So got Sarah as our mover, Daryl as our seconder, all in favour. Carried. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Okay. Now we have item 14. We have Jane is going to present that to us. This is the Summer with Your Neighbours. Hi, Jane.
Kia ora. I'd like to move, well, suggest that my report's been read, and if you have any questions.
I was just wondering, because we've got a small amount of unallocated, whether we might just pop that on a couple that have got the bigger numbers. I don't know, or are we just very focused on keeping it very even and?
Yeah, we were, and giving priority to residents rather than organisations.
Yeah. Okay then. That's fine.
Cool.
Move.
Yeah, happy to move.
Thanks, Anita. Seconder, Jackie, all in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thanks. Okay, moving on to our community board area report. We've got Aranui Grace.
Enormous.
No, the report's not on this.
The attachments.
Page 91.
So you can see that we've been working quite hard in this last month to get a lot of things tied up, information that the board has asked for, and making sure that it's come back before the end of the term. So that's why I think we got up to attachment T.
Yeah,
T, yes, in the attachments, which is quite phenomenal. But we got permission to pop in a few extra late. So some of these things came through after the time that we usually get this signed off, but in order that we got as much closure of business as we possibly could before the board is gone. So one of the things that is in here that the board might consider is we've got notes on was it in the minutes or regarding the shoreline?
It's mentioned in the area report as something
yes.
the board dealt with at one of its August meetings.
Yes, so that if you were wanting to consider, you know, in the last meeting, we talked about a potential resolution and it wasn't possible in elected members exchange, but it's in here in the report, so the board might consider that. That's one of the things that I'd like to bring to your attention. One of the other things that I also want to bring to your attention and apologise for is that unfortunately one of the memos on here is the community board plan monitoring report. Normally we would do this as a report. I think it's attachment M for Molly, and N, is it? Oh, Finelli.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to just to bring your attention to that. I know everyone's had it and that you have you've read it prior to this, but I think it's worthy of a little bit of time in the last board meeting, given that it was a piece of work that that the board and the team have focused on for the last 3 years, and I'm just trying to find it. It's very hard to find and talk at the same time. I had it before and now I've completely lost it. So I'm just, excuse me while I.
Page 162.
While I find it.
Of the
attachments.
Of the attachments.
Of the attachments.
The attachments.
Yeah, I know it's a. Just give me a moment because I had it. Don't you hate it? Okay, so I would like to walk through each of these, and I know you've read it, but I guess from the perspective of the community governance team, this has been the focus of our work for 3 years. We've reported to you every 6 months in a monitoring report, and we've workshopped how we would achieve the outcomes that you've been looking for on these priorities. On a regular basis, we've workshopped this stuff with you. In terms of the community wellbeing was a real catch-all. Basically, everything that wasn't in one of the other priorities fitted under community wellbeing, and we've reported on that as we've gone through. But I think some of the really important outcomes that we've had is, one is the work that we did with the board around focusing the strengthening communities funding on growing social cohesion in our communities, on really starting to get a sense of the impact that the groups that you were funding were making in their communities, which we've workshopped as we've gone through. But I think it's been a significant piece of work for the teams as we've worked through that. And the amount of the building of the capacity of the community around those things. So we have worked hard in terms of getting the community groups to work collaboratively with each other, which fits under the sustainability aspect of the board's priorities, and especially in the youth sector. So we've done some really, really good work alongside all of our community organisations, the fresh events, the wonderful the wonderful opportunity young people had to go to the art gallery and have a dance party and say, really, are we allowed to come in here? Young people who might never have done that. And the work that the board is now sponsoring with, into the next triennium with the Strengthening Linwood Youth Trust and the community youth development worker. So that program, so that's a piece of work that I guess we're really proud of as a team, and I think this board can be proud of handing to Coastal Burwood Linwood. Moving down, I think Moa Park was dealt with really quickly, which was just fantastic, because a lot of these things weren't so easy, but it was done very quickly, and wonderful that Sally got to see that before she left us. I think the footpath one was always deeply problematic in terms of specific activity, and yet we've managed to, it's been on the board's mind every time there's been an opportunity that it's been heartwarming that, you've raised it in the craft program, raised it when we talked about the Wurnoff streets, raised it, when we were talking about the streetscape work and the master plans. So it has been a focus, even though it didn't seem to have a specific thing to land with. Greening the East, fantastic that, the Working Party achieved a plan, some quick wins were gained, and there's money in next year's budget. Yay, fantastic. The working parties take a significant amount of staff resource, but there's such a highly effective way doing the community engagement that Viviana was talking about earlier. And I nearly piped up when Tessa was asking the question. Improving Bromley's roads, parks and infrastructure. This is such an exciting project, and it has taken a very long time to do all that stuff, you know, the paddling under the water that nobody can see. You know, all credit to the board that every time we went to the board for annual plan submissions, for LTP submissions, we weren't sidetracked by great long lists of 1,000 projects that we were adding on to. You know, we talked about the key projects on the board plan, and money was gained for this project by doing that. Money behind the scenes to do the initial planning, and then $1 million on the last annual plan. And I know $1 million doesn't go very far, but when we've been working with the community group, we've talked about building the snowball that needs to be pushed down the hill. And it is a well-formed snowball, and it is actually, the moment it goes over the edge, it's going to gather and grow really quickly. So there's money in the new, I can't remember what it's called, the staff have asked for significant funds for Bromley in the new CRES or CREF, or you know, the surf. Don't even remember what they were. Yeah, and you know, and the around school and the school planning program in Bromley. But it's wonderful when you can go and speak with a community, a group of you know, mums in a community, and say this is about climate change and public and active transport, and not having huge trucks and speeding trucks on your roads actually is one of the things that will enable those things to happen. So it's and they get it, and it's really exciting that yes, and doing some lobbying for Bromley Transport to be on the next community board plan. So you will hear from them, those of you who are standing in that area, and it's really, and they're really excited about, you know, taking action, taking community action. So yet again, this is another way of engaging with the community, and it's a real slow burn. This stuff doesn't happen quickly, it doesn't happen overnight, but what you do see is people behind a project, and you get, and this is one of those areas that Viviana was talking about that is really hard to get engaged. And they're keen to be part of that engagement process. So it's been time consuming, but also really, you know, really gratifying. Suburban master plans, well, actually all of these could have been separate and we lumped them all together. But, you know, the board has lobbied consistently on getting these delivered, and on the whole, this is happening. You finally got some information about where things have got to with the Bays skate park in this area. Put the memo is attached. And people in Woolston are delighted. It's just fabulous. Yeah. It has become a little village again, when it was really a drive-through, and for all the concerned about car parks leaving, actually now people stop. Yeah. So.
Well, we did put some back. So
yeah.
So in the revised.
Yeah.
The other street stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, that piece of work, and I'm, you know, I'm hopeful that the board will continue, the next board will continue to advocate for Red Cliffs and the slow speed, which come every time Coconut, when we talk about slow speeds, Red Cliffs gets raised, and it hasn't made it onto the list yet, but I have absolutely no doubt that the Spraden Cashmere Heathcote community board will definitely, yeah. No, it's not on there yet, but it will be. It will get there. Yeah. Yeah. And they know that the board hasn't forgotten them. Linwood Park and Te Pou Toi Toi, well, I mean, that's an obvious, it's just been enormously successful. And the team, the community governance team has been a really big part of getting the sorts of extras that happened around the pool. You know, the Wahine Wednesdays was part of the recreation advisors' work, getting that in place, the right screens and the sorts of infrastructure that was required for it. And it is just such a win. Yeah. The pool parties, you know, have been a touchstone for young people who now recognise the guys from, you know, who run it and who and are creating that network of relationships, which is essential for young people who, you know, who are at risk, the wider relationships than their immediate social circle. And the bombing pool, yeah. The Opawaho Lower Heathcote guidance plan, yet another example of what really good community engagement looks like. You know, the Opawaho Heathcote River Network are delighted, and the people who were involved are delighted by their involvement in that process. And it really does feel like a community, a ground up process. So, and by golly, you know, the board funded all of that. And last but not least, the priority on community resilience and preparedness. The Sustainability Charter probably hasn't done what we might have hoped it might, but it was developed and it actually has led things such as the board's priority for funding, and we have made sure that those priorities are part of the board's Strengthen Communities funding, thinking about where money goes. I think I would like, when I'm talking about this, to kind of thank the teams who have been involved in creating this. You know, the stability of the Linwood-Central-Heathcote community governance team has been problematic. So ever since it became clear that Linwood-Central-Heathcote was going to be disbanded at this election, which has been basically nearly 2 years of the 3-year term. So we have had teams of people through our doors, and yet every single one of them has been in the right place at the right time and made the right contribution. And we've had some amazing skills and some incredibly cohesive teamwork when you consider the enormous amount of disruption. So I would like to say a really big thank you to everybody who's still here and in the team, and everybody who has actually contributed, because it has been quite phenomenal, and I don't say that lightly. You know, it's just amazing when people can come in and be virtual strangers with each other, and within a you know, short period of time be focused on delivering the sorts of, you know, outcomes I think that we've managed to do. So that and I guess to the board for sticking with it, you know. From a governance team's perspective, there is something about working with a group of elected members who are willing to say, this is what we're going to focus on, this is what we're going to prioritise, and stick with that and not bobble around all over the place, because it makes it incredibly hard if your focus constantly shifts. So I feel like we've done the team thing with the board around this as well. So a really big thank you. And when you consider that we've had, you know, such disruption with changes in elected members as well, and we had COVID. all through this for 2.5 years of the 3. It's been a phenomenal effort. So thank you. And I'll take questions on the area report, but that's all I want to speak to.
Thank you so much. And thank you for outlining all of that. I think it's really nice to look back on everything. Sarah's running away. Thank you.
Can I bring up our gem that we received today? They have done some planting under the Kiwi Rail Bridge.
Oh, yes.
Kiwi Rail Bridge, and we've been sent a video of a Pawa children who did some planting. You've got the photos on your devices today, but we're just going to run this video.
Oh, cool.
All go.
That's so cool.
And that is another thing that the board worked hard on, and the Pawa Ho Working Party.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Since it's the governance report.
We just got one more thing. Sorry, Sarah. We have a resolution about shoreline, if you wish to do that.
Yeah.
We have some proposed wording.
Yes. So where is it? Oh, okay, cool. So we need a resolution for the short line trust. So request staff to initiate an expressions of interest process for managing and activating the space within Matuku Taku Taku Sumner Centre.
I have a third resolution, but we can't get to it till I've done this little bit.
Let's do this little bit.
Is it right? So
Yes.
this little bit. So for our longest serving.
I'm longer serving than her.
Yeah. Although I don't know where Grace was here when I first arrived on the board.
Yes.
Oh, you were reporting. Just after. It was a very rumpy term as well. This is just a very small thing. All your time and energy into it.
Thank you, Sarah.
And we haven't managed to celebrate and wind up the board the way that we might have liked to. But I think the work of the community governance team is enormously underestimated. And again, it's that headline that's not saying what it's done in the background. Actually, as elected members, we you know, we set direction and stuff. But you guys are the ones that actually do all the work. So
thank you.
Yeah, especially you two. So it's to with you. No. Well, having consistency and that kind of approach is actually really important. Like it is everyone, and there is a broader team, and everyone does the mahi. But yeah, that you are that interface with us. You're more visible, and you're managing the team as well, and providing advice and all of that. It's I'm really sad that the board's disappearing, and we'll, you know, see you guys around. Hopefully be working with you on and off. Yeah, it's I'm gutted that we're not doing this in a broader setting, but it is being live streamed. So I'd just like us formally to actually have an extra resolution in there, where that the board express its sincere gratitude to the governance team for their mahi.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything, and obviously thank you to people that have been here and left and, you know, gone on to different things. I think without them we wouldn't have actually been able to see our communities actually have some really positive outcomes. And yeah, you are definitely the people that are pushing out the fantastic work. So thank you so much. That council last Thursday also acknowledged the fact that, well, as elected members, we get a bit of flack sometimes. Actually, our staff cop a lot as well. So I want to acknowledge the fact that whilst we're all trying to do best for our communities, that yeah, sometimes it can be tough, but thank you for sticking with the amazing work that you have done, even in the face of adversity at times. So thank you so much. It's not an easy gig, and we really, really appreciate it. But thank you for sticking with us as well, even when it's been tough times. Having staff that have been really supportive and just helped us continue through our tough times has been so important. And I think as a board, we've come together and actually just worked on stuff for the community, which has been so important. No matter if we've, you know, had our own things going on, we've actually got a lot of good stuff done. So pretty stoked. But yeah, and thank you everyone for being here today. Well, almost everyone. But we wish Jake and Yanni well as well. And I think for Yanni, he's obviously not here, but his long standing on the board has been a very long time, and it's a very long time. But it's good to recognise, I think, the work that he's put in over so many years for his community, and they've really, really appreciated that. So I'd like to recognise that as well. So yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Do we have a seconder? Oh, I think it was Anita. Cool. All in favour of those resolutions? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we've done all that. We are just on to elected members information exchange. Jackie.
I just got one question just before we go. There was going to be a presentation of the funds from the Wolston Community Association
Oh,
and
yeah.
a plaque.
Yes.
Yes. Will that be carried over to the, I just want to request that it will be sent through so that it doesn't get missed.
It's not being missed.
No, I'm just.
Trying to find out how to fix it to the wall. That's my
Okay.
job at the moment.
Brilliant. That's
Plaque
fine.
is all made, ready to go, and the
Excellent.
pool staff will affix it to the wall. We're just getting through that process.
Okay, and are we still going to do like the big presentation with the check thing? No, that's fine.
Not.
That's fine, as long as it's plaque.
The presentation has happened. The pool has the money.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Jackie. Daryl and then Michelle.
Thank you. It must have been coming to the end of the board term because locals have presented me with several issues this week to get in front of the board. And I think really if we can just note them. Mariner Street, a resident has complained about the fact that the process that we have in place with respect to flooding and the council coming and doing their bit on the beach prior to the flooding hasn't been working lately in terms of digging out the drains, and the result of that was flooding in Mariner Street. In that proximity to .com in the area that everybody knows so well. The same person also raised the state of the footpath and the fact that with .com now sort of fully operational, a lot of locals or visitors bring their dogs, and there is quite a lot of dog excrement left on the footpath. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but maybe something in Newslink or the newsletter or whatever going forward might mention that people need to perhaps be a bit more observant with respect to their dogs and clean up after them. That was the first thing. And also a resident of Scarborough raised the issue, and I've been working on this week with council, and it was essentially an oversight, I think, that is now being rectified, but really my main point in mentioning it is just to note it in the record, and that was really the state of Scarborough Road, water leaking through the road and affecting the bitumen. Council are onto it. The other thing is also, given that the narrowness of Scarborough Road, there has been overhanging foliage, which has meant that cars coming down the hill have tended to move over towards and cross the centre line, which does create an issue, and vehicles do tend to travel down there quite fast. Sometimes it's a bit of a racetrack. So council and the resident concerned seem to be working the issue out. So if it could just be noted on the record. Same person also raised the issue of foliage down by the surf rescue and the fire risk that is associated with that, and it goes on Herberdine Avenue from the rescue boat right along to Edward Mouldy Track, and particularly in that area by Scarborough Restaurant at the back. And the concern is that the dry foliage over the summer months presents a fire risk. And if a match gets tossed in there or there is a fire of some sort, it has the potential just to go up the side of the hill.
Has it been a CSR lodge?
No, the council, Lynette Ellis, and it's going through. I've been working this week with them, and I won't bore you with communications. It's simply just mentioning it and placing it on the record, so that we've got a record of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. There's a lot of notes that have been made, so they will get carried over. Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, just to say that I met with residents in Monks Bay on Monday who are going to be talking with staff as well, talking about potential for a pedestrian refuge or other safe crossing point from that area, sort of near Bayview and stuff, over onto the coastal pathway. The one small gap is actually going to be closed up through there. Wasn't kind of safe to cross right opposite Bayview. But it's quite a long way for people to go then to get actually onto the pathway, and having such a highly, an amazing asset right there with the people who live opposite it can't actually access it because of the wall in the way. So the staff are just going to look at some options and see what's possible, see what's not, and bring that to the new board. So.
Thanks, Sarah. Tim?
Yeah, apologies for not being at that. I was in Lake Tekapa. Yeah, I've still got a couple of meetings to go. Actually, I'm chairing a Hagley Park reference group coming up, and Sunita and I are continuing to work on the Airbnb challenge to City Council's right to be democratic and decide its own rules. So Council had previously contracted a town planner and an economist. This time they've contracted how would you describe a social impact researcher, social impact assessment. So that person has been around talking to various people, including Charlie from Sumner, about what are the impacts of Airbnb on selected communities across Christchurch. So council are putting some serious effort into this issue. So Sunita and I will do our best at the rather silly meeting that's happening on 6th, this is early October anyway. 4th of October.
I just hope it doesn't take whole day.
Yeah.
I have not been sending through, we have attendance, people had to get the attendance in to the mediation. I haven't been sending those through to you.
Okay.
Unless you want them, to know how many people are attending on so and so.
I'd quite like to know if you can.
The group has 11 people.
Oh, okay.
But, yep.
Yeah. You.
Do our email addresses, our email addresses still keep working?
Yes, they will keep working still.
I will not have access because I've got only council email here, not in my private. No, they have cancelled it.
We'll talk about it after the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's it from me.
Cool.
Oh, I am giving a talk to Hornby Rotary. I had foolishly said that my busy Wednesdays stopped happening about now, so I'm talking to them next week, which is a talk I give on some of the council projects that I've been most excited about, like the Heathcote Land Drainage Recovery Program, etc. But I've got a good mind to give them just some picture of how a board works based on the talk we've just had, the report we've just had. I think it's a good one to have in mind on such occasions. I'm just trying to put some positivity out there amongst this negative old world we live in.
Yeah.
Take the report with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? Sunita?
Grace, when I don't understand things and I ask, and everybody else, what will happen to this? So it was great experience, and that has given me courage to go again. So yeah, just plain simple thank yous. Yeah, and be in touch. Don't be strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anita. Oh, Michelle.
Thanks. I just thought that I would give you a wee update about the wastewater plant fire community reference group, which continues, because I know that we as a board had a lot of concern about the impact of the aftermath of the fire on residents. So the group, so it's, as you recall, it's got a mix of elected members from the Waitai and our board and community people, and it's continuing to meet weekly mostly. And the activated sludge system, excitingly, has replaced the trickling filters, and the pond health is improving. And what that's translating to is that in general, the odours are trending in a good direction. Things got really good after the big rain events, and then they kind of went backwards for sort of around the beginning of September, but things are looking better now. Support payments, those $200 payments, that's closed now. So the pond health is improving, and with warmer weather is expected to improve further. There's some work being done on the discoloration of the house paint, but the thinking is that until the odor issue is dealt with, or the hydrogen sulfide, it's pointless to be fixing it, because it might well return. And there have been 4 applications made. There's some funding that's available through the 2 community boards to community groups. So there's been 4 applications made for those. And if anyone has any questions, I may or may not be able to answer, but just wanted to give you that update. So we're going to be continuing to meet weekly. There's been a few letterbox drops as well. So really working hard on the communication, and there's the blog and the newsline articles and so on.
Cool. Thanks, Michelle. Do we have any questions for her at all? No. Thank you so much for the update. We really appreciate it. Okay. All right. Well, if that's all, I guess we're done. That's it. Thanks to anybody that has been watching online this evening or rewatches this back. Just a big thank you to our communities for your amazing mahi and being part of our community board